Hello, I'm Jaden, a Live2D rigger and animator, and someone who has motivation to work on all sorts of projects because nothing is more fulfilling than seeing your creations come to life and move. I know all of you with your original characters want that. That's right, I'm talking to you. We all have those crazy ideas in our heads that just need to come to life. I consider myself someone who loves a cute little visual or just something moving to keep me going. If you've seen any rigged animation, you're probably familiar with tweening, or maybe you're more familiar with professional and complex styles of 2D puppet animation, with things like Adobe Animate and Toon Boom Harmony. This not only saves time since you don't have to draw everything by hand, but it's a unique and very fun way to animate. Fun fact, did you know some games you've been playing also use Live2D Cubism? There's even an entire anime created with this style of animation, which I think is so cool. It's mostly common in the East, but it seems to be picking up in some Western media as well. I'd like to start off with a bit of a history lesson about the program, because I feel like it's important to explain what Live2D is and how it started, just for a bit of background context. I know anyone I hang around with hears me say things like the rig and the parameters and the model, and all they hear is so to those people, this is for you. Live2D Cubism, at its simplest, is a 2D animation software that allows you to create movements for static images. These images are all contained in a file called a PSD, which stands for Photoshop document. This file has all of your art pieces on individual layers, and it can get pretty complex. At first, only a few games in Japan used it, but it slowly started picking up once the app, which from what I'd gathered is an alarm clock app with this girl Hibiki being the mascot and character for the app. I went onto the website for the app and oh wow, does this reek of early 2000s in a good way. There's even this charming little note from the developer saying to refrain from starting the app in places where it can be a nuisance, which is just so weirdly charming to me. Live2D definitely got its first spike once visual novels and mobile games started using it. The 2D look is just really appealing to some people. Looking at some articles from back then, you can see how people found this technology to be really impressive. Not only impressive, but convenient, since you didn't have to make 3D models and learn how to optimize it into a game. And as someone who has tried doing 3D things, let me tell you, it's really hard. Since Live2D allows you to export your model files in a format that makes it compatible with Unity, a development platform, it allowed for easy integration for things like video games, websites, and of course, real-time face tracking. I had trouble finding out who first started using Live2D face tracking, or who made the first app with face tracking. For the longest time, or at least what it feels like to me, Live2D tracking felt like this super top secret project that wasn't available to the public. It just wasn't as accessible as it was right now. Either that, or I was just stupid and didn't know how it worked. Parameters are recorded movements that you make in the software. If you're a video editor, they work similarly to keyframes in things like After Effects and Spine 2D. That PSD file type I mentioned earlier gets ported into Live2D, and you use anchor points and deform the art to create an almost 3D-like effect to your art, allowing for some super stunning VTuber models. It takes a lot of work and experimentation, but what most Live2D riggers will tell you is that the result is always worth it. So that's why I'm going to tell you the result is always worth it, especially if you're doing both the artwork and the rigging. And yep, that's where I come in. We're finally at the part where I tell you about my experience using it. I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson I gave you. Researching for this part of the video has given me really good experience about the program's history, so we're both learning here. Picture me in 2019, a very naive, innocent, and frankly annoying child, just wanting to make animations like all the cool people they see on YouTube. I used to try animating on my phone, both traditionally and with cutout style tweening, and I sort of failed at both. Tweening had the better results, at least. You might be wondering why I'm talking about 2019, as that would technically be 6 years using the program and not 5. But I'm not counting that, since I technically wasn't using the program or making anything with it. I just know I had to be included in that ancient craft, even though I had no video editing or animation skills. But it just looked really fun. Live2D came off as this forbidden software that only the gods were allowed to touch, and every few years creators would bless us with an animation and then leave, and if they were lucky, they would bless us again with a tutorial, feeding us the scraps. Okay, I'm sort of exaggerating, of course, but that's what it felt like in my mind. Do you ever just see someone do something so cool, but you don't understand how it looks, and it just seems impressive anyway? It's like that. Learning to animate or even rig a model seemed impossible to me. I was just so lost in even where to start, and I didn't even know what most of the tools in the program did. But you never know unless you try, because who knows, you might become good at it. I was such a quitter if I messed something up. I just expected everything to be perfect on the first try, which is not a good mindset to have. Don't end up like me, please. Little did I know I'd be using the program a lot in the future. We love a bit of foreshadowing, don't we? We're moving forward to 2020, where, like most people, we were stuck inside because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yay! At the time, I wasn't trying to animate or make anything. I guess I was just floating around the internet trying to fit in. So some of you may or may not know that 2020 was the big VTubing boom. What was mostly seen as inaccessible and required a lot of work that only corporations in Japan could do. Now, anyone could get their hands on a Live2D model, tracking software to become a virtual avatar. Naturally, the rise of 2D VTubers in the East also meant the rise of VTubers in the West. It's interesting seeing how Live2D models started versus how they are now. It still inspires me to make models to this day. A couple of months into the new year, I was a part of a Discord server for a streamer. Typical stuff, right? And I was just chatting in a voice chat, as you do. And after some conversation, someone turns on their camera and I see this silly looking VTuber model in VC. Let me tell you, when I saw this, I was a lot more impressed than you thought I would be. After looking at this person's model, I thought to myself, what? I want to do something like that. So I dusted off my Live2D program that I haven't used in a long time, made some botched model artwork, rigged a model which I used a super basic template for, and exported the model and optimized it on my bloated MacBook. But I really was happy to have a model of my own. I never planned on streaming or making anything with it. I just wanted a fun way to spice up calls with friends. Because when you have that visual aid and direct contact when talking to someone, it just makes things more fun and memorable. And that's how I went on throughout 2020. It was just me, my messy rig, and my very simplistic design. Not only are we seeing the rise of more riggers entering the community, but we're also seeing an increase in more tutorials, which means more resources for people to get their models made. Now, I was still using my silly looking asymmetrical model, but I was also around a lot of people getting upgrades and showing off their cool flashy designs, and that inspired me to improve. And so, my 2021 model was born. It looked very weird. I remember one of my old friends even said that the model looked lopsided, and I can't help but agree with them. I mean, just look at those eyes. But my rigging did improve. The model had some physics and some toggles that moved a lot more fluidly than I remember. This year, my motivation spiked so much. So much to the point I was even dragging my friends into it. I had to explain to them what VTuber models were, how they worked, how to set them up, and I was really happy that they were on board. Much to varying results, of course. But this actually helped me get a lot of experience and learn new techniques through watching tutorials, showcases, and other videos. Although I probably wouldn't put anything I rigged 4 years ago on my portfolio. Because, God, nobody wants to look at that. I then began pumping out more models for friends and other people who I just randomly felt like surprising. This also helped me learn different art styles, because some people were drawing their own models and learning how to cut them up. Of course, like most people, I watched tutorials and tried my best to understand what they were teaching. But I had so many ideas in my brain, I just had to do them all. This was generally just the year where my interest in VTubing peaked. I'm guessing my interest mostly came from the technology surrounding it, and how it provided people with a unique way of expressing themselves. I know a lot of people who want VTuber models, but still have no idea how they're made or if they can even make one themselves. And to that I say, try it out yourself. We should all try some things at least once in our lives, and who knows, it might become your new favorite thing. When you open up Live2D Cubism, the app's default state is Modeler mode. This is where you do your rigging and your physics, and make all the movements for your parameters. However, when clicking on this menu here, it opens up two more options, Animation Mode and Form Animation Mode. Any Live2D model can be used in Animation Mode. With the model's parameters, you can use them to animate keyframes on the frame picker here, and adjust things with the graph editor to your liking. This is how most companies get their use out of the programs, for things like anime, visual novels, and websites. This also led a lot of people who rig VTuber models to try their hand at the Animator mode. However, a Live2D rigger is not the same as a Live2D animator. Now back to me. I took a break from making VTuber models, mainly because I was using a device that couldn't really handle the tracking or even run and broadcast the model. So I started working on models that were simple, cute, but still effective. Hey, random thing. If you haven't noticed, I use sprites for my mouths. Well, animating is actually where I got my dislike for mouth rigging. Don't get me wrong, I totally will do it if needed, but man, can the workflow just be a bit of a struggle sometimes. At least in my case, I just use sprites. It's a lot more suited for my style and taste, as well as my sanity. Props to all the advanced mouth riggers out there though. Most people who were making Live2D animations at the time were either making games or looping animations. You know, with the pretty well cut artwork you see on streaming assets. So a lot of the animation you see is either animated at 30 FPS, but this can go up to 60. Just to be very fluid and smooth. That's what I tried mimicking as well, and I kinda just thought it was the default standard. After all, those are your default settings when you load up into the animator mode, but you can actually go in and change them using this little inspector menu right here and just adjust the settings to your liking. I never knew about this until years later. Heck, I didn't even know what the scenes feature was. I actually didn't know anything about the basic animation fundamentals. I just went in straight ahead, which means I didn't plan any key poses and just went through the whole thing without much thought. Oh, and as for the animations I made, that's a secret. For a future video, of course. Maybe. Whether it's a starting soon screen for your streams, or some poses for your next visual novel, you can create anything as long as it's rigged. So that means no hand-drawn animation. Sorry guys. I didn't have that hard of a time using the animation mode, though I wasn't making anything groundbreaking. I think I was just blissfully unaware of how jank my animations were. I do recommend taking some things you see done in other rigging and animation software, as there's always something new to discover if you broaden your horizons. 2023 began with me getting back into making VTuber models and working on some video commissions in between. Now VTuber models were really popping off. People were experimenting with all these kinds of crazy toggles and physics, and anytime I saw a Live2D showcase, it gave me motivation to rig, because I wanted to reach the grand big heights. My new model was a lot different from my previous ones, definitely a lot more taller, but still cute and simple. I think this model took the longest out of my entire rigging career ever. It was just me, my cup of coffee or smoothie of choice, and my laptop. I sat there trying to rig all the parts correctly and making sure the face was just right at every angle possible, which led me to be burnt out and not even wanting to work on the model anymore. Although, I did push through and complete it. Knowing what I know now, the model does have a lot of flaws, but I did what I could and created something presentable, as I was watching so many tutorials and trying to get the model as fast as I got the other ones done. Not to be all doom and gloom, but I think this was when I got a good look at how complex a Live2D model can truly be compared to something simple like my older models. So what's the community like? Well, thankfully, I only have positive feedback for this section. People are right there in the Live2D Discord server giving honest and helpful feedback, and there's even a resource form with tons of information that I just love to read up on. There's also a ton of tutorials from the east and the western side of VTubing, which I recommend checking out both to see what you can apply to your own models. The official website also has some information about special opportunities you can even apply for, which I think is super neat. I think if I wasn't active in the community, I would have been learning things a lot slower, and we all know how much of a nightmare that would have been. I also think it's good to have people who are willing to help out and show off their process, because it welcomes in new people and makes them less afraid to try it out. We've practically traveled through time, and look where we end up. The present. I won't go too in depth about my new model, as that's already an entirely separate video on its own, which, let's be honest, is probably already outdated by now, but still worth checking out. I began revisiting old techniques and actually got back into animating, and oh my god, I've been having so much fun. Not to say making VTuber models was a drag or anything, I still enjoy it, but making models just for animations has been such a breath of fresh air, a good palate cleanser if you will. So it keeps me motivated to keep using the program. Like, if I wanted to make a game with the software, I could. Maybe. It's just an easy way to get my ideas out there without needing to animate a bunch of frames or multiple drawings or anything. I can look back at my old models as the stepping stone to my newer and much better ones, since we all have to start from somewhere. Mastering a scale is no easy task. However, if you see things through to the end, you'll be able to create something that will genuinely put a smile on your face, and hopefully others too. So, do you plan on using Live2D at all? Do you want to know anything about it? I'd be happy to answer. If I have time, and if I can actually answer it.